of all that violence on children and teenagers. Now, a series of recent studies seems to suggest we should all be concerned. The studies, published in the Journal of Adolescence, concluded that teenagers that play a lot of violent video games are more likely to fight with their peers, argue with teachers, get poor grades, care less about people, and view the world as a hostile place. They are troubling results, but they are not expected to settle the debate over whether violent games can cause violent behavior. Some experts say video games shouldn't be singled out from all the other violent images we're exposed to all the time. Others argue that most studies only show that violent people may be attracted to violent games, not that those violent games actually cause violent behavior. But don't tell that to Canadian Denise Deneau. She says she was a victim of video game-inspired violence, and it shattered her life. The CBC's Fraser Conway has her story.
My cousin Aaron Hamill was a very kind, giving, caring person. He had a sense of humor that would light up a room. Just a wonderful person to be around.
Windsor-born Denise Deneau was always close to her younger cousin, Aaron Hamill. Last summer, she went to visit him in Newport, Tennessee. It was a wonderful trip that took a horrible turn on Interstate 40.
His last words to me were, "Oh, Dee Dee, look at those beautiful flowers." And he didn't even get the S out on flowers. And all of a sudden, there was an explosion that came in through my window. I looked up and I could see a hole and I could see the glass shattering. And then I looked down onto my lap and I was covered in glass and I was covered in blood.
A bullet had smashed through the window of the truck Aaron Hamill was driving, hitting him in the head.
And I knew there was nothing I could do for him except hold him, tell him I love him. I told him that it was really bad and he wasn't going to get out of this.
To everyone's shock, the shooters turned out to be two teenaged brothers, 13-year-old William Buckner and 15-year-old Joshua Buckner. Even more shocking than who did it was why. 20-year veteran of the Cork County Police Department, Chief Detective Robert Caldwell, investigated the crime.
They just said that, you know, they watched the video game and got the idea to start shooting at cars on the interstate or vehicles on the interstate from that.
They didn't see the danger in that at the time?
Well, I don't know. They just went out and did it.
The Buckner brothers were playing a game called Grand Theft Auto, a best-selling but horrifically violent video game. A thug tries to take over a criminal empire, shooting and killing just about everyone and everything, from little old ladies to police officers to vehicles driving by. One summer evening, the two boys apparently decided to play the game for real. Armed with two loaded .22 caliber rifles taken from their home, they crept through the bushes and staked out a covert position overlooking the highway, then started firing multiple rounds of ammunition at moving vehicles. The line between fantasy and true life blurred beyond all recognition.
I was appalled, disgusted, to think that there was such a thing, there were things out there that these kids could play. That's not playing.
My initial thought was, you know, how could somebody do something like this? That was my initial thought. And what a tragedy it was.
What makes the story of the shooting that happened from this spot so unique is that it's the first time kids who have behaved violently have specifically blamed a video game. Now, nothing like what's happened here in Tennessee has ever happened in Canada. Still, the shooting has reignited a smoldering debate about violent video games in the hands of kids. In Canada, kids can play violent video games. There are no laws or regulations to stop them, just a voluntary rating system, guidelines created by the video game industry itself. A mature or M rating means a game recommended for adults only, with lots of sex and violence. The video game industry says it doesn't condone kids playing games designed for adults. Harvey Nightingale is executive director of the Canadian Interactive Digital Software Association.
The bottom line, though, our perspective is simply this, that what we try and do is provide the consumer with the best information that we can with respect to the product they're purchasing. And having said that, there is still nothing better than parental involvement with their child.
Nightingale doesn't even think this is an issue because M-rated games play such a minor role in the video game industry.
Violent games only represent about, depending on the year, anywhere from 6 to 11% of all the video games that are produced every year. By and large, the most the games, about 50%, are for everybody, and the fastest growing age group is the teen group.
There is no independent verification of these figures, but no matter what the precise numbers, it seems kids, boys in particular, love to play violent video games, and that overall, the industry-sponsored rating system is leaky. Last year, the Canadian Media Network studied just how many children were playing violent video games. Kathy Wing says the results were alarming.
We found that students in grade 7, their #1 game was Grand Theft Auto, and that was grade 7 to grade 10. So Grand Theft Auto is an ultra-violent, mature-rated game for people 17 years and older. Grand Theft Auto also showed up on the top 6 list of children's grade 3 to grade 6. So we know children have access to these games. If they're not able to rent them at the local store, they will play them at someone's house that has them, that have older siblings.
14-year-old Cale Cardinal of Winnipeg shows just how ineffective the industry rating system is. He's been playing violent video games for years, has no trouble renting or buying them, and doesn't think that's a problem.
There are some kids who can easily tell the difference between what is and what isn't a game. And those are the kids that I think are ready for that, but there are others who aren't. Again, it all comes down to the person.
And what about those who aren't ready? What should happen with those? I mean, how do you limit? How do you filter?
I think the parents are the ones who actually decide that, ultimately.
Cale's mother, Natalie Strecker, a teacher, agrees with her son. She believes children who are well cared for don't commit crimes, no matter what.
If a child who has a sense of moral ambiguity is going to play a video game, you're going to get a different response than you would from a child who has a strong set of morals, who knows the difference between right and wrong. A video game is not going to alter that.
Or will it? Research into how violent video games may affect kids is relatively new, but some studies have shown considerable harm.
What a lot of studies have shown is that there's aggression directly after playing the games. And this is also true of television as well, they've shown, particularly with young children and cartoon violence. Children do tend to act out violently right afterwards. What we don't know is if this aggressive behavior is systemic, if it's going to last throughout a person's lifetime.
These Winnipeg high school students have all played violent video games and don't know what all the fuss is about.
I think it's an escape from reality. I mean, if you don't want to do something in real life, you could do it in a video game. That's like, I'm pretty sure that's why like Grand Theft Auto was created, because you could go and kill someone in a video game. Meanwhile, you're not harming anyone in real life.
What you do in there has no consequences. Whatever you do, there's nothing that people can do about it. In real life, if you shot somebody, there would be consequences.
But it seems like there were real-life consequences for Aaron Hamill and for the Buckner boys. Not much is known about the family except that they live in an upscale neighborhood in Newport, Tennessee, and that before the shooting, the boys were not known as troublemakers.
I personally had never had any dealings with the two young men who were charged with this case. To my knowledge, they weren't known to the police officers.
There are skeptics who don't believe the excuse of the video games made me do it.
Want a scapegoat. It's an easy way to get out of something, to blame another person or something else, so might as well.
Lately, there's been so many cases on video games influencing people in violence, and I think it's just easier to blame the video game than to take the blame themselves. I mean, obviously part of it was the video game's fault, but they need to make their own decisions.
I would suggest that the whole thing is blown out of proportion because it's the crisis du jour. It's the answer of the day for our societal problems.
So, are violent video games being unfairly targeted? Over the years, a lot of entertainment has been blamed for turning good kids bad.
What we do know about media violence, though, and what we can say conclusively, is that there's more media violence than there used to be. The media violence that's out there is more graphic, it's more sexualized, there's more psychological violence, more sadistic violence, more violence involving torture. We know that those types of violence are on the increase in all the media that children are consuming. We also know that they have greater access through, the internet, through satellite television, through interactive media like video games.
And many people worry that violent video games are worse than other violent media because kids don't just watch and listen, they interact. They do the shooting and the killing.
These kids are admittedly saying, we got the idea from Grand Theft Auto. So how many more people are going to have to die before changes are made? Listen to the children. They're telling you.
Denise Dano believes governments need to step in and make it illegal for kids to buy or rent violent video games, just like it's illegal for kids to get into restricted movies.
My feeling is there should be a restriction on them as well. If they're going to continue to make this type of game, I don't see where that's a game, killing people. When you've watched someone die in front of your face and waited for your own death, it's not a game. It's not a game.
Not long after the shooting, William and Joshua Buckner pleaded guilty to reckless homicide, aggravated assault, and reckless endangerment. They were ordered held at a juvenile detention center until they turned 19. The family of Aaron Hamill has filed a $246 million lawsuit against Take-Two Interactive that makes Grand Theft Auto, Sony Corporation that markets it, and Walmart, which sold the game to the Buckners. And that's News in Review. I'm Carla Robinson. Thanks for watching. It was the mightiest invasion in the history of the world, and Canadian soldiers would play a big role and pay a heavy price.
We waited until we got in, the war up to about our knees. Then they started to really mow us down.
Now, 60 years later, some of those soldiers returned to Normandy to celebrate their victory and remember their dead. On News in Review, return to Juno Beach. Hello, I'm Carla Robinson. On June 6, 1944, thousands of Canadian soldiers stormed ashore on France's Normandy coast. It was D-Day, and the Canadians and their allies were trying to punch a hole in the western wall of Adolf Hitler's fortress Europe. When the battle for the beaches was finally over, the Allies were victorious. The Canadian soldiers had fought bravely and well. It was a moment of great national pride. But for many Canadians, it was also a time of great sadness because many of our soldiers never came back. This summer, veterans from both sides returned to France to mark the 60th anniversary of the D-Day invasion. And for Canadians, that meant returning to a place called Juno Beach. Today, this 8-kilometer stretch of coastline is a peaceful place. Only the wreckage of war gives any idea of what happened here 60 years ago, any idea of the fierce fighting that claimed the lives of so many young Canadian soldiers. Canadian soldiers who lie here in quiet cemeteries not far from where they died, still remembered by the thinning ranks of those who fought with them, still honored by the people they helped liberate. The D-Day invasion of Normandy, codenamed Operation Overlord, was the largest land, sea, and air operation in military history. More than 150,000 troops would assault 80 kilometers of coastline. They would be supported by thousands of ships and planes raining shells and bombs down on the German defenses. But despite all this firepower, the operation was a risky one with no guarantee of success. The Allies would not only be facing the most feared army in the world, they would be fighting an enemy that had been preparing for this battle for a long time. For years, the Germans had been building a series of massive and heavily armed fortifications along the French coast. They had laid tank traps and other obstacles on all the beaches, as well as millions of mines. And the hundreds of thousands of Nazi defenders were led by one of Hitler's most brilliant generals, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. He was confident his troops and tanks could smash the invaders on the beaches and drive them back into the sea.
Keine Sekunde den Kopf zerbrechen, gut oder schlecht geht. Es geht bestimmt gut. Und ich glaube nicht, dass England ein zweites Mal wiederkommt, wenn hier den Versuch macht.
The Allied plan was to storm the coast